Park Board meeting for Thursday, November 14, 2013. Let me ask everyone to please silence all cell phones, and we advise you also that the meeting is being videotaped by the village and may be video or audio taped by others present. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Andrews?
Present.
The following trustees: Schnapper.
Here.
Walsh. Bailey.
Here.
Hinshaw.
Here.
O'Loughlin. Here. And Wittenberg. Here. We have a quorum, Mayor Andrews.
Okay, Clerk Joe Consolo has a personal obligation tonight, and that's why he is not here. Please rise and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, to begin, a couple of items I'd like to point out is that on Saturday, November 16th, day after tomorrow, will be the Run for Kelly at Lyons Township South Campus. It's a 1 mile walk. What time does that begin?
The walk is at 9:40,
9:40. Okay, so if you have time and can be there to support it,
and there's two ones. They start at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock?
8 and 8:45.
Okay. You have the times. Wolf Road, if you've been down Wolf Road today, actually started last week. They're doing some paving beam of the North Acacia entrance. I don't know if they got back there today to do the hot pavement.
No, they didn't.
Okay. Anyway, I know that Superintendent Santon had contacted the County Highway Commission to come out to fix those potholes there before the winter set in. I had also contacted our Cook County Commissioner, Ms. Gorman, and asked if she could make an inquiry on our behalf, and we're not sure what the timing was, because I didn't know that Ed had made the call. In any event, they came out last week to saw cut it. They were out there today grinding it down, and it is kind of a deep hole, but we expect that they will be back to do a hot asphalt patch, which is more like street paving than a cold patch, because cold patch would not survive the winter. So that's what's going on there. If you're in the southbound lanes, about 6400 south on Wolf Road there, please be careful, and we'll follow up that if they're not out in a day or two, please give them a call.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, and next thing, I would like to read this short letter from our Indian Head Park Heritage Foundation. It's addressed to Mr. Alonzo and copied to myself and all the Board of Trustees, stated November 8th. Dear Mr. Alonzo, this shall serve as notice that the Indian Head Park Heritage Foundation, Inc. shall terminate its month-to-month lease relative to its office space located at the IHP Heritage Center, 6250 South Wolf Road, 2nd floor, on December 31st, 2013. In this regard, all foundation furniture and all other items of foundation personality shall be removed from said leasehold premises on or before December 31st, 2013. Lastly, we enclose herewith our check in the amount of $630 representing rent for the 4th quarter of 2013, and it's signed by Noreen Costello, General Counsel. So we lose the tenant as of the first of the year, and with it the approximately $2,400 and some dollars of income that will help offset whatever expenses we incur having the Heritage Center. I contacted Mr. Pellegrino about it, and basically his reason is that they are not in a position to sign a long-term lease, and they prefer to carry the month-to-month. He was also aware that there might be concerns about liability by not having the lease, and the foundation made a decision they didn't want to cause any consternation over that, so they are terminating their lease. They have a new home, and so we lose that tenant. And that's all I have to report in the mayor's report. Next item of business will be the consent agenda. This is the approval of a resolution to determine the estimated levy for 2013 for the Village of Indian Head Park. And then Treasurer Dew said next month we would have the actual levy ordinance, correct?
It is correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Second. Motion by trustee Wells, second by trustee Wittenberg. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, motion carries. Approval of the financial report for the month ending September 30th, 2013. Treasurer Busa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned tonight, I have the financial report for the month of September 2013. In September, the revenues were $130,840.24. The expenditures, $234,559.52. And at the end of September, in all funds, the total was $1,669,931.76. That's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, trustees, any questions or comments on the financial report? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the financial report for the month ending September 30th, 2013 as presented.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Schnaufers, a second.
Second. Brenda.
Trustee O'Loughlin, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any of the chair, the ayes have it. Motion carries and the financial report is approved. Next order of business is the approval of board meeting minutes. The first set are the minutes of the regular board meeting from October 10th, 2013. Are there any changes or additions to any of the first three pages? Pages 4 or 5, 6 or 7, 8, 9 or 10, 11, 12 or 13 or 14. Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting for October 10th, 2013.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Schnapper, second.
I'll second.
Second by trustee Wittenberg. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? In the chair, the ayes have it. Motion carries. The minutes for October 10th, 2013 are approved. Next order of business is the approval of board meeting minutes from the town hall meeting, November 7th, 2013. Thank you, Kathy, for turning that around in the short time frame. Any changes or additions in any of the first three pages? Page 4 or 5, or 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. Excuse me, and I guess we have page 11 as well. Hearing none, chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the town hall meeting from November 7, 2013.
I'll make a motion.
Made by trustee Walsh. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by trustee O'Loughlin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opinion of chair, the ayes have it. Motion carried. The town hall meeting minutes from November 7th are approved. Agenda items. First item is the approval of a finance committee ordinance. This would be ordinance 2013-10. It's a short ordinance that establishes a finance committee along the lines of a discussion that we had going back into the September meeting. And what it does is it creates a finance committee that will be comprised of 2 village trustees that we have discussed would be our finance trustees. Primary is trustee Schnapper and backup is trustee O'Loughlin. Village administrator Frank Alonzo and finance director Dave Brink, and 2 at-large members from the community which will be appointed, and I would plan to do that at the December meeting. The finance committee will have some powers. I think it's focused, and this is our first time in having that. This is to involve residents in basically the budget process is what we're looking primarily for at the beginning here. They will have one-year terms, and nobody's term would go beyond the end of the current village president's term, and then would have to be reappointed. There is provision to allow for consecutive appointments to that position. The duties of the Finance Committee include the following, and that would be to cooperate with the Board of Trustees and the appropriate officials and departments of the village in connection with financial matters and activities of the village, to recommend to the Board of Trustees an annual budget of the proposed revenue and expenditures of the village, to recommend to the Board of Trustees such legislation as it may deem appropriate related to village finances, upon the request of the Board of Trustees to conduct public hearings, perform research, and otherwise obtain pertinent data, and make appropriate recommendations related to village finances, to conduct its meetings in compliance with the Open Meetings Act and other applicable laws, and to carry out such other functions as may be delegated to it by the Board of Trustees. It is not so specific that it says the only duty they are to do is to engage in assisting the board in preparing the budget, but I envision, at least initially as it gets operated, that will be the primary task. And again, this would be a new endeavor on behalf of the village. So that will be a good starting point. There is, authority to have the committee get involved with other things that might be just beyond preparing the budget, but all focused to village finances. So at the beginning, I would have to tell you, when I first read the draft of the ordinance, I thought it was a little bit broader than I envisioned it to be. But upon reflection and consideration and the input and discussions we've had, I thought, you know what, it's not overly broad. They don't have any final authority on anything as typical with other committees in the village. There's an advisory body to make recommendations. They will not vote on and approve the budget. The village board would, which is rightly where the responsibility is. So with that, and I think it covers a number of the other concerns that we have raised, and it's not overly broad in terms of we're asking basically this new committee to get involved in too many things and to keep them focused on budget and finances. So with that, I would recommend that the board would approve ordinance 2013-10 to create the Finance Committee. And with that, I will open it up to questions or comments by the trustees. Excuse me, thank you. Chair would, and this is so that we can get to a discussion at the board level of this. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the Finance Committee ordinance 2013-10 as presented in the packets.
I'll make a motion.
Moved by trustee Bailey. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by trustee McLaughlin. Discussion, trustees. I'm sorry, I was waiting.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
sir. Any idea how many people have responded and put their name in the hat?
Yes, with the potential of somebody having postmarked something and we didn't get it yet, that hopefully would be in by tomorrow. I believe it's 6 at this time.
That's great. And the plan for that is the Finance Committee, the trustees and you, or how does that selection process happen?
Well, I will make the appointments with the advice and consent of the board. So my intent is to contact the individuals and talk to them and make my recommendations based on the resumes and the input I get. And as I say, since we are starting with the levy resolution today and the levy ordinance in December, and we talked about trying to get this going for the next cycle, the budget cycle, I would like to be able to get to that point for the December board meeting. Any others, trustees? Questions or comments from the audience on the Finance Committee? Hearing none, then we have the motion, it's been seconded. Roll call, please.
Trustees Bailey?
Yes.
Schnapper?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Hinshaw?
Yes.
O'Loughlin?
Yes.
And Wittenberg? Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, great. So we'll get going with that. And once I've had a chance to talk to people and get going, we'll provide information to the trustees prior to the meeting, including with their resumes, so you can take a look at it and you can square that with the people that I will be nominated to those positions. And let me just say in advance that obviously with 2 openings and at least 6 people who are interested, 4 people may be disappointed. It's not going to be, it should not be ever construed as a reflection on that individual or their abilities or qualifications. The fact that people are interested in being involved in the village is great. And the fact that I will know them and have their resumes if something comes along, they're going to be in line to get contacted, so we'll see how that goes. Next major item of business tonight is the approval of the street repair capital improvement plan, including the scope of the work and the method of the project financing. In light of the fact that we had the town hall meeting last week. Just briefly, and certainly trustees, you heard from the residents last time, although I will still allow input tonight, but tonight is our turn as the village board to take it to the next step, to determine what we want to do. We are not making a final vote on anything tonight because there is no documentation that we need to vote on present tonight. The objective here will be to get to a point where we can have a motion to direct the council to prepare the appropriate documentation, whether that be an ordinance, resolution, or whatever, to do what we need to do, that I would hope that we will be in a position to vote in final form at the December board meeting. What I'd like to do tonight, it occurs to me that there's at least three parts to it, and certainly if the trustees have additional things that we need to hash out. Just in a broad stroke, I think the first item that we need to discover, or to decide, is to discover how much work we want to do as a board, or decide upon the scope of the work, and of course what the cost will be for that. After that, we need to decide how to raise the funds for the project, where are we going to get the money to make payments to do it. And third, because for those who were here last time at the town hall meeting, know that a lot of the discussion focused toward the road bond, and so if that's the decision, then I would suggest that we need to make a decision on the road bond concerning what payment period, 10, 15, or 20 years, or something else, if somebody has an idea or suggestions about it, to pay that off. So I would like to, just for the sake of organization, I would like for us to approach this in a fashion under those headings and ask the trustees what their opinion is with respect to the scope of the work that they would feel comfortable supporting. And of course, that will, I think, segue into how much that's going to cost. So let me start on this side and ask Trustee Hinshaw, how big of a plan would you support? And I'm basically, for generals, I'm talking about scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. If you have some different recommendation, would contemplate that as well. Okay?
All right, we talked earlier this week, Rich, there were some questions that I have about the project, I guess, as in general, that haven't been answered. I put them in an email on September 18th to Frank, and I haven't had answers to those yet. I didn't get the opportunity at the town hall, because that was for the citizens, so I don't think I'm ready to say what I'm in favor of, because I still have questions, some of the ones we talked about this week. So I don't know if I get that opportunity to ask to try to understand this, or if you want, just push ahead.
Well, like I said, I would like to get to a point of us making some, at least preliminary decisions, so we can work on it next week, perhaps, if you've got some thought. I'm not sure the nature of the email that you sent to Frank, what questions are still outstanding.
Well, like the one we talked about, you and I, the other day, this scenario 3 does a bunch of streets and it crack fills other streets. The crack fill is not permanent. It will last, how long will a crack fill last, Frank? Is it?
I think we talked about that. Ed, maybe you can respond to that when we talked about it the other day. Some of the
I mean,
streets.
you're gonna do preventive maintenance over probably 5 to 8 years, and then after one point, there will be no benefit to crack filling.
Except for the ones that we got listed as crack filling, but the preventive maintenance should carry us out there, according to the engineer, when I discussed it with him as well, is that should carry us with some, besides crack fill, they'll probably get some work done. If this gets approved, the engineer's gonna go out, obviously, and look at all these streets. And then the ones that we say crack fill will give us clearer study that maybe there'll be some other kind of patchwork done to it, to give us that life of all the other streets.
So if we do a bunch of streets now and we crack fill the other, do we anticipate any streets will need to be redone, resurfaced in the time of the bond if we go that route?
If we go 15 years, I think we'll be okay.
So the crack filling will last for 15 years?
And there's for some of the streets that we recommended to be crack filled. Now, when the engineer gets out there and looks, and says, well, maybe we'll do a little bit more to this street than just a crack fill, that could take place.
And so again, where my question's coming from is if we sign up for a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, whatever, if we have this debt that we have to pay off, and then we have a street, the 18th street on the list, that wasn't done, that has to kind of assume it's gonna run whatever the bond length is.
Yes.
Because we don't have any money for that street.
With some money as normal repair, if a repair has to be done on those streets. In other words, it's budgeted a certain amount of money like we do today.
All right. Matt and I had a brief conversation at the last town hall meeting about some money is coming out of the general fund for roads today. Is that right?
Yes, it's coming out of what we have done. We didn't do any crack filling this year, so it's coming out of that money.
So if we do the bond money, how much are we freeing up by not using the monies from the general fund? So maybe we could start depreciating or saving or doing something.
Maybe 20,000 to start,
Also fairly small.
fairly small. But again, like I say, in those streets that we will be crack filling and doing some minor repairs, we will still have to leave some money, well, just even for the streets that we do, maybe the repair somewhere down the line, so we still have to be conscious of that to carry these on, and maybe they'll have to get some repairs, so we'll have to put, what we would put aside for crack filling can continue to maintain those streets that don't get a full repair.
So we'll keep crack filling for the
Yes.
length of the bond for the streets
Yes.
that are on the crack fill
Yes.
list.
For, that if we need to do a repair, we'll repair to it as we go.
All right, so, Mayor, you wanted to know what, can you ask your question again?
The scope of the work that you would feel comfortable supporting and with respect as yardstick to scenario 1, or scenario 2, or scenario 3, or some other hybrid version of that.
I'd like to support scenario 3, but I think we need to get to the point of depreciating money for the roads so that in 15 years, or whatever the term is, 10 years, we're not at the same point again.
Yes, I think I brought that up at the meeting the other night. We'll have to look at the budget and see if we can do something, because we need to. But I might add to it, I did have a conversation with the engineer today as well, and he's a big proponent of the streets that are going to be crack filled, that it will give us a good life on those streets. What a little repair it might be as we go. In other words, Ed also wants to put a program out there, that we do this every year now, like you mentioned, to make sure we're up, as we feed these streets into the computer, to see which one will need a little extra care as years go on.
So scenario 3 is not all at once, it is a plan stretched out.
Right. I mean, something will be done to all the streets.
Right.
And it is, as the engineer explains to me too, if we go out for that $2.5 million, and as he looks at the streets more closer, you're gonna end up moving things around. If you have a street that you thought you needed to do a lot more work to, maybe as you do quarry, it might come in at a little bit less, then you can move to the street that might be a little bit more care. So it will be.
But it could go the other way too, right? That was part of the unknown, we won't know.
Right.
So then, when it says crack fill, and it lists a dollar amount, then that is not all at once, that's for a longer period? Or is that all at once and there's other money?
Well, that would be all done under this program, under the 3-year. Everything you see on the list will be done, and maybe more if it stretches further.
Okay, but if we crack fill all at once in the first wave,
Yes.
where does the money come from the crack fill in 3 years or 5 years or 8 years?
Well, we'll have to budget for it, as we've been budgeting for crack fill normally, we will continue to do that.
All right, and have we been crack filling?
We just didn't crack fill this year, and we just did because we were talking about the road program, so we thought we'd wait, and then we did some repairs with the crack fill.
We have been crack filling.
Yes, we crack filled in the past.
And they're all these crack fill numbers, and some of these are fairly sizable.
Some we changed, you know, on that correction, the sheet that was corrected.
The blue sheet.
Yeah, you would go more, go out, go off the program sheet from the other night last week.
All right, thank you.
And trustee, my understanding, and Frank and maybe Brian correctly, the idea behind this, if we did scenario 3, when we come into all that money, assuming we raise it, that all of the projects here would get done as soon as possible. I mean, there wouldn't be like an army descending on Indian Head Park to hit every street on the
Right.
same day and time. But the plan would be to, as soon as we could get, for example, Osceola Trail is listed for crack fill for just $2,011, but when we could get to that, that would be done as part of this program. It's not something we're saying, oh, we'll do this 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now. This will be done
Right, all of it.
as soon as possible under the guise of this street plan. Okay. Is that what your question, is that your understanding now too?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure of the money in 5 years where that's gonna come. Cherokee crack fill, $34,000. If we have to do that every 5 years,
That, I believe, is that the one that we changed for 34,000 for crack fill? That's more than crack fill.
I don't think that was one.
No, overlay?
Yeah, see Cherokee under scenario 3, that was where we made the corrections. That's a mill and overlay for 34,000.
Okay,
Crack fill would be very minimal amount of money. And that's where this.
all right, so Mohawk Court for 10,000.
Is more,
And how long again does that last? Is it crack filling, the road should last, I think they wrote in my notes, 20 years approximately?
15 to 20.
Okay, and crack fill, I think they did 5 to 10 years?
And then you just look at it again, and we would, but in this process, though, we would still be looking, every year, we're gonna look at all the streets to make sure we don't have to do a little something to all of them. At a normal budget. To keep it up. We do this big program, we want this to last. If the street lasts 15 years, if we do a better maintenance, maybe we'll do 20 years. That's the key behind this, is to keep up a maintenance program.
Okay.
And the engineer feels with maintenance, you will hear it, and he stated it. Some question it, but, you know, he's the engineer, and he stated, last week's meeting, that we can probably get more than 50, we can get at least 20 years.
Any other issues from your email?
No, I think that's,
Okay.
yeah, there are other questions, but like with the water system, but I think that's not what you want to talk about now.
Right,
so.
strictly about the roads right now. Trustee Walsh?
I would also be inclined to support scenario 3 I think it's more important to, it's important to, from a cost-effective standpoint, to try to accomplish as many projects at once. If you're talking about the timeframe, I think we can discuss that more, but I think the 15-year timeframe seems to be an appropriate timeframe. The only issue that Brenda and I were talking about a few moments ago is on 65th Street,